Have you ever wondered when she truly starts missing you? Not just thinking about you for a moment, but feeling your absence deep in her soul. That quiet ache that comes late at night when the world slows down, when no one is texting her, and she finally feels the silence that you used to fill. The truth is, missing someone doesn't happen instantly. It builds slowly, silently, and only when a person begins to realize what they lost. Something real, something that can't be replaced by distractions or new faces. In the beginning, she may seem fine, confident, maybe even happier. She'll convince herself she made the right choice, that walking away was strength. She'll laugh louder, post more, and fill her days with noise just to drown out the emptiness that follows. But here's what most people don't understand. Emotions have a delayed reaction. The heart doesn't immediately feel the cost of a decision. It needs time, time for the mind to process what the ego refuses to admit. And while you sit there thinking she's forgotten you, something deeper is happening beneath her calm exterior. The same energy she once directed toward you, her attention, her care, her warmth, has nowhere to go now. It starts to turn inward, creating a quiet emptiness she can't explain. She'll scroll through her phone and feel a sudden pull toward your name, but her pride will stop her. That's when missing you begins. Not when you chase, not when you beg, but when you disappear with self-respect and peace. Because what triggers her to miss you isn't your presence, it's your absence combined with your strength. It's the way you choose to rise instead of fall. It's how you move forward without resentment, without trying to prove anything. When she sees you not fighting for attention, not chasing validation but evolving, that's when her mind starts to question everything. That's when she replays the memories she once dismissed. That's when the moments that seemed ordinary suddenly feel irreplaceable. You see, people only start to miss what they realize had real meaning. And real meaning isn't loud. It's consistent, calm, and genuine. It's in the way you made her feel safe, seen, and understood. It's in the energy you gave that no one else can replicate. When you stop trying to remind her of your worth, you give her space to discover it on her own. And that discovery is powerful, because when a woman realizes the difference between someone who wanted her attention and someone who valued her soul, the feeling of missing becomes almost unbearable. So if you're waiting for the moment she starts to miss you, stop counting days. Stop watching her life through the lens of comparison. Instead, start building a version of yourself that even you can't stop admiring. When your energy shifts from loss to growth, everything changes. You become magnetic, not because you want her back, but because you found peace within yourself. And that peace is rare. That's what makes people look back and realize who truly mattered. Stay until the end of this message, because what you'll learn here isn't just about making her miss you. It's about understanding how emotional power works. You'll see why distance, silence, and self-respect can create more attraction than any words ever could. You'll understand how real love and real value always come full circle. And by the time you finish, you won't just know when she starts missing you. You'll know how to make peace with whether she ever does. The moment she starts to miss you isn't born from loneliness. It's born from contrast. The contrast between how she felt when you were present and how she feels now that you're gone. Human psychology thrives on comparison. The mind can't fully appreciate comfort until it faces discomfort. It can't value peace until it feels chaos. That's why your silence speaks louder than any message you could ever send. When you step back, you allow life to show her the difference between what was real and what was temporary. At first, she may fill the gap with distractions, new conversations, endless scrolling, temporary thrills. But none of it carries your energy. None of it has your depth. Because real connection isn't replaced by repetition. It's anchored in presence. And when that presence is gone, the mind begins to crave it like oxygen. That's when she starts noticing what she once ignored. The small things, the calmness you brought, the way your energy grounded hers. That's when she starts realizing that missing you isn't just emotional, it's psychological. The dopamine rush fades, but the emotional bond lingers. Here's the truth most people avoid facing. You cannot make someone miss you by force, but you can make them feel your absence by becoming unforgettable. And being unforgettable doesn't mean being loud or dramatic, it means being authentic. When you move from neediness to self-worth, from chasing to creating, you shift the dynamic completely. You stop being part of her past and become a standard her future can't match easily. That shift happens when your silence carries confidence, not resentment. When you let go without anger, you show a kind of strength that speaks directly to the subconscious mind. People are drawn to what they can't fully understand, and nothing is more mysterious than peace after pain. When she sees you no longer trying to prove your worth, she begins to feel the weight of her choices. That feeling grows in quiet moments, in the stillness between her distractions, when her heart whispers what her pride tries to silence. That's when missing you transforms from curiosity into emotion. That's when she feels the pull, not toward the past but toward the stability she lost. Your job isn't to wait for that moment. Your job is to evolve so powerfully that even if she does miss you, it no longer defines you. Because real growth means shifting from wanting her back to becoming the kind of person who doesn't need her to feel complete. You can't control when or if she feels your absence, but you can control what you do with that silence. You can use it as fuel, to heal, to rebuild, to rise. And when you do, the energy she once took for granted begins to radiate stronger than before. That's the paradox of love and loss. When you stop reaching for what's gone, what's meant for you starts reaching back. When you stop reacting from emotion and start acting from purpose, you gain control over your own narrative. She starts to miss not because you remind her, but because she remembers. Because the version of you that now exists is stronger, calmer, wiser. Missing you becomes a reflection of her realization, not your effort. And that's the moment everything changes. Because when you master the art of detachment, you become free. And in that freedom, you discover something greater than being missed. You discover the power of being at peace with yourself. There comes a moment when silence turns from something she ignores into something she feels. At first, it's background noise, easy to overlook, easy to fill. But slowly, that silence begins to echo, reminding her of what once gave her peace. She starts noticing that the people around her don't understand her the way you did. Conversations feel shallow, laughter feels forced, and the emotional safety she once took for granted suddenly feels rare. That's when missing you begins to evolve from emotion into awareness. She doesn't just miss you, she begins to recognize what she lost. Psychologists call this emotional contrast awareness. The moment someone becomes conscious of the emotional void that follows genuine connection. It's not the absence of a person they feel, it's the absence of energy, the warmth, the grounding, the steady presence that once balanced their chaos. When she can no longer find that in her environment, her mind instinctively returns to the last place it felt it. That's where you live now, not in her phone, not in her routine, but in her emotional memory. And memory, when tied to emotion, never fades easily. But here's what separates the strong from the desperate. You can't wait for her realization, because waiting keeps you in emotional bondage. The more you wait, the more you center your value around her recognition. And that's not power, that's dependence. The true power lies in detachment, in understanding that whether she misses you or not has nothing to do with your worth. It's about her timing, her growth, her inner battles. You cannot accelerate her awareness, but you can elevate your own. Every moment you use to rebuild yourself sharpens your energy. Every day you choose healing over chasing makes you more magnetic. The truth is, attraction is energy. When your energy is calm, grounded, and whole, it speaks directly to the subconscious mind. You don't need words or contact to leave an impression. You become unforgettable by existing fully in your strength, not by reaching out to remind her of it. And that's exactly when the dynamic shifts. because the more you focus on your peace, the more her mind begins to associate your absence with stability. She starts to wonder how someone she thought needed her could walk away with so much grace. That curiosity turns into reflection, and reflection turns into longing. She won't admit it at first. Pride rarely allows honesty in the beginning, but the truth always breaks through silence eventually. The same moments she once used to avoid thinking about you will start to feel empty. The same songs, the same places, the same late-night thoughts. Suddenly, they don't feel the same. Because when someone leaves a calm energy behind, the world feels a little louder without it. That's when she starts missing you not just as a person, but as a feeling. And no distraction can replace a feeling that brings peace. But your focus now must be on transformation, not reaction. Every ounce of energy you waste wondering when she'll miss you could be fueling the life that makes her memory irrelevant. Build yourself so deeply that even your past can't recognize you. Become so fulfilled that being missed no longer matters. Because when you reach that level of self-mastery, you stop chasing closure. You become it. And that's when the universe starts returning everything that once ran from your calm. When a woman begins to miss you, it's rarely because of the grand moments, it's because of the quiet ones. The way you listened without judgment, the peace in your presence when her world was chaos, the calm tone of your voice when she was lost in emotion. These are the details that memory holds onto long after the excitement fades. They live in the subconscious, resurfacing in moments she doesn't expect. It's not about missing your face or your messages, it's about missing the version of herself that only existed around you, the part of her that felt safe, understood, and seen without pretending to be anything else. But the irony is this: she only recognizes that when your energy is no longer available to her. When you finally withdraw from the emotional space she once took for granted, her mind begins to notice the emptiness that follows. Humans crave emotional certainty, and when that certainty disappears, the brain goes into search mode. It replays moments, tries to reconstruct patterns, and subconsciously searches for what it lost. That's when your silence becomes louder than any words ever could. Your absence begins to do the talking. This is why chasing never works. When you chase, you feed her comfort. You confirm her belief that she still has control. But when you detach, not out of anger but out of peace, you shift the dynamic completely. The control she once had dissolves, replaced by uncertainty. And uncertainty is the birthplace of attraction. It's what makes the mind restless, what creates curiosity, what turns memories into emotional triggers. When you are no longer predictable, you become powerful. You occupy mental space without even trying, because the mystery of your calm energy becomes impossible to ignore. And while her mind wrestles with confusion, your task is to keep evolving, to stop waiting for her to notice and start noticing yourself. Every ounce of love, attention, and focus you once gave her, redirect it inward. Rebuild your habits, your purpose, your confidence. Because nothing reignites attraction faster than growth. The human mind is drawn to progress. It respects movement. When she sees that you are not broken by her absence but refined by it, something inside her shifts. That's when she starts to feel the weight of what she lost. Not just you, but the energy that made her feel alive in a way she didn't appreciate before. But don't grow for her. Grow for yourself. Let her absence become the space where your power expands. Because once you reach a level of peace where her opinion no longer defines you, you enter a different kind of freedom, the kind that cannot be taken away. That's where true attraction begins, not from trying to be wanted, but from becoming whole. And here's the truth that many never realize. The moment she begins to miss you most is the moment you no longer need her to. That's when energy reverses. That's when the universe begins to mirror your inner strength. Because people always return to the energy that made them feel safe, but only after that energy no longer depends on them. And when she finally looks back, what she'll see is not the person she left, but the one she can't stop thinking about. the one who found power in peace. There's a shift that happens when you stop waiting for her to miss you and start focusing on who you're becoming. It's subtle at first, almost invisible, but it changes everything. You stop checking your phone. You stop analyzing her silence. You stop wondering if she's thinking about you. And instead, you begin to think about your next step, your next goal, your next version. That's when your energy begins to rise. That's when you take back control from the emotions that once controlled you. Because emotional freedom isn't about forgetting someone, it's about no longer being defined by what they think or feel about you. The truth is, love often teaches through absence what it couldn't through presence. Pain becomes the teacher that peace couldn't be. The emptiness you feel isn't a punishment. It's a mirror, reflecting where you place too much of your identity in someone else's validation. But when you see that clearly, something inside you awakens. You begin to realize that what you thought you lost was never truly yours. It was borrowed, temporary, fragile. What's real, what's permanent, is what you build within yourself. That's the version that no one can walk away from. And as you grow into that awareness, your energy begins to shift from need to power. You no longer crave to be remembered. You become unforgettable by the strength you radiate. The more you let go of attachment, the more your spirit begins to glow with clarity. You stop reacting to what left and start responding to what's next. You move differently. You speak with intention. You stop seeking closure because you realize you've already given it to yourself. That inner calm, that quiet confidence, it doesn't go unnoticed. People feel it, even from afar. That's when she begins to sense your transformation, not through your words, but through your energy. That's when missing you turns into a quiet regret. But your growth cannot be about proving a point. Because when growth is used as revenge, it's still attachment in disguise. True evolution happens when your peace becomes your priority, when you rise because it's who you are, not because it's what she needs to see. That's when you break the cycle completely. You stop being someone who reacts to loss and become someone who creates from it. The past loses its grip, and the future starts to open itself to you. That's when life rewards you with something greater: clarity, direction, and emotional strength that no relationship could ever teach. She might start remembering you at this stage. The memories will come back stronger than before, not because you're chasing, but because your absence has become powerful. But by then, something in you will have shifted so deeply that her recognition won't define your worth. You'll understand that missing you was never the goal, finding yourself was. You'll see that peace was what you were truly craving all along. And once you experience that peace, you'll never trade it for attention again. Because the man who no longer needs to be missed has already found what he was missing within himself. There comes a point where the pain that once felt unbearable turns into clarity. You stop asking why things ended the way they did, and instead, you begin to see how it shaped you. Every unanswered message, every silent night, every memory that once hurt, each becomes a lesson carved into your growth. You start to realize that what you called heartbreak was really a redirection, a necessary collapse to rebuild the parts of you that had forgotten their own strength. And in that rebuilding, you no longer chase closure from another person. You create it with your own hands, through your own healing. When you reach this level of awareness, something remarkable happens. You stop being a reflection of what you've lost and start becoming a representation of what you've learned. The energy that once felt heavy begins to lighten. The sadness that once controlled you turns into stillness. You stop needing someone to remember you because you've remembered yourself. And that realization is power. The kind that can't be faked, can't be borrowed, can't be taken away. It's the quiet power of someone who has seen his own darkness and walked through it without losing his light. That's when the tables turn. Not because you planned it, but because energy always balances itself. The version of you that once doubted his worth becomes unshakable. You no longer seek validation from her or from anyone else. You no longer post to be seen, you move to be fulfilled. You live not to prove, but to evolve. This shift is magnetic, it's rare, and that's why it pulls people in. When she eventually sees that you are no longer seeking her attention, it challenges everything she once believed about you. It disrupts her sense of control. She feels that contrast deeply. The version of you who once waited is now unreachable, not because you built walls, but because you built peace. And that peace cannot be faked. It radiates in your presence, in your silence, in the way you move with purpose. That's what makes people look back. Because deep down, everyone is drawn to someone who doesn't need them to feel whole. It's not about pride, it's about energy. When you no longer need to be missed, you embody the kind of strength that makes you unforgettable. She may think about you late at night, not out of nostalgia but out of realization. Realization that what she once had was something real, something that doesn't come twice. But by then, you'll have already moved beyond needing that recognition. This is where transformation becomes complete. You begin to live from alignment, not attachment. You stop carrying emotional debts that don't belong to you. You start walking with a calm certainty that everything meant for you will find you again, and everything that left did so to make space for what's better. That's when freedom feels real. When you can look back without pain. When you can remember without longing. When you can love without needing. Because the truth is, the moment she starts missing you is also the moment you stop missing her. And in that perfect balance, you find peace deeper than any connection could ever give. When peace becomes your foundation, the need for validation disappears. You stop chasing closure, explanations, or emotional reassurance, because your stability no longer depends on what someone else feels. That's the point where power becomes quiet, where you no longer have to prove your worth to anyone, not even to yourself. You just know it. It's in the way you move, the way you speak, the way you handle silence. You become unshakable, not because life stopped testing you, but because you stopped breaking every time it did. That's the kind of strength that no breakup, no loss, no rejection can destroy. It's the kind of energy that doesn't just attract people, it commands respect. When she begins to miss you, it won't be because you tried to make her. It will be because she feels the difference between what you gave and what she finds now. The surface-level connections she turns to will never carry the same depth. The excitement will fade, the newness will wear off, and in its place will come a quiet emptiness she can't explain. She'll start remembering the way your energy grounded hers, the way your presence brought calm instead of chaos. And in that realization, she'll understand something that most people learn too late, that peace is rare, and when you find it in someone, it stays with you even when they're gone. But by the time her heart reaches that awareness, yours will already be free. You won't crave to be missed, because you'll have outgrown the version of yourself that needed to be remembered. You'll see that the real victory was never in her regret, it was in your evolution. You became the person who no longer depends on being chosen to feel worthy. You started building from within. You stopped replaying old moments and started creating new ones. And as your life begins to fill with purpose, passion, and new energy, you start to realize that the pain you thought was breaking you was actually shaping you into something stronger. That's the beauty of emotional maturity. It teaches you that sometimes losing someone isn't the end, it's the beginning of a deeper relationship with yourself. You start to see that what left was only meant to clear the path for what's next. You no longer view love as possession, but as growth. You understand that missing is part of healing, but staying stuck is a choice. So you release with grace, you forgive without bitterness, and you keep walking. Not because you stopped caring, but because you started living. And that's when everything aligns. You attract differently. You love differently. You walk into rooms carrying a calm that others can feel. You no longer chase energy, you embody it. That's when life starts mirroring your peace. Opportunities flow, connections deepen, and your presence begins to carry a quiet strength that draws the right people toward you. Not out of nostalgia, not out of regret, but out of resonance. Because when you master yourself, you no longer need to be missed. you become unforgettable, not through absence, but through evolution. And that's the moment when you realize she was never meant to complete you. She was meant to awaken the parts of you that could. The most powerful version of you is the one who no longer reacts but responds, the one who no longer chases closure but creates it, the one who understands that love isn't proven through pursuit but through peace. You begin to realize that letting go was never about losing, it was about remembering your worth without needing to be reminded. When you operate from that state of awareness, everything that once held power over you begins to fade. The texts you never got, the apologies that never came, the validation you thought you needed, they lose meaning. Because when your self-worth is no longer tied to someone else's recognition, you become untouchable. You move from emotional dependency to emotional mastery. That's when missing you becomes unavoidable, not because of manipulation or strategy, but because energy never lies. When your heart is no longer chasing, when your spirit no longer seeks approval, it emits a calm that others crave but cannot imitate. She begins to feel it without you saying a word. The silence that once felt like distance now feels like presence. Your absence begins to carry weight, not from pride but from power. That's the paradox of detachment. The more at peace you become, the more your absence begins to speak. Because peace is magnetic in a world full of noise. And while she feels the pull of what's gone, you start feeling the strength of what's arrived. Clarity. You stop asking what she's doing, who she's with, or whether she remembers you. Those questions dissolve the moment you understand that your purpose was never to be someone's missing piece. It was to become whole. That realization is liberation in its purest form. It breaks the emotional chains that kept you waiting. You no longer see love as something to earn. You see it as something to share when you're already full. That's when everything begins to align, because the universe always meets those who meet themselves first. She might start to remember you at this stage, not through forced reminders, but through quiet reflection. She'll think of the peace she once felt and the way you made her feel grounded. She'll scroll past your name but linger for a moment longer. That moment will grow into thought, thought into memory, and memory into emotion. But the difference now is that you'll no longer need her to feel it. You've outgrown that version of yourself. You've learned to stop romanticizing the past and start building your present. You've realized that being missed is not the goal, being aligned is. True confidence comes when your worth no longer depends on who walks away. It comes when you trust that losing something that doesn't align is a form of protection, not rejection. You begin to thank the silence for teaching you what words never could. You start to understand that healing isn't about forgetting. It's about remembering who you were before you gave your power away. And once you return to that place of self-trust, nothing can shake you again. That's when your energy becomes unstoppable. You radiate calm, purpose, and quiet certainty. You no longer need to be seen to be felt. You move through life knowing that what's meant for you will recognize your peace when it finds it. Because when a man reaches that state of being, the world feels his presence, even in his absence. That is when you stop waiting for her to miss you. Because now you finally understand she was never the point. Your evolution was. There comes a moment when you stop needing closure from anyone because you finally give it to yourself. You stop replaying conversations that ended without answers. You stop trying to make sense of choices that were never yours to control. You simply breathe, release, and rise. That's when true emotional power begins, not in control but in surrender. Because surrender isn't weakness, it's trust. It's understanding that life removes what's not aligned so you can grow into what is. You stop asking, why me? And start saying thank you. Thank you for the pain that woke me up. Thank you for the silence that taught me peace. Thank you for the loss that led me back to myself. When you reach this mindset, missing becomes irrelevant. You don't need anyone to realize your worth for it to be real. You don't need validation to confirm your value. You've already faced your own reflection and seen what you had forgotten to see. your resilience, your heart, your ability to rise again. That's what changes everything. The same energy that once longed for her attention becomes the energy that fuels your growth. You start building habits, purpose, and direction from a place of inner strength rather than emotional dependency. You begin to embody peace instead of chasing it. That shift doesn't just heal you, it transforms you. People often think strength is about pretending not to care, but real strength is the ability to care deeply and still choose yourself. It's knowing you can love without losing yourself in the process. It's the courage to walk away when something no longer nurtures your soul. And when you live with that kind of strength, something magical happens. You start to attract experiences and people who reflect that same energy back to you. The chaos that once surrounded you disappears because you no longer resonate with it. Your life begins to quiet down, but your presence becomes louder. That's when you realize that peace was never about isolation. It was about alignment. You stop measuring your worth through who misses you and start measuring it through how you treat yourself. You start nurturing your own energy with the same dedication you once gave to others. You start respecting your boundaries, protecting your mind, and prioritizing your growth. Every act of self-respect becomes a signal to the universe that you are ready for something real, something equal, something grounded, something lasting. And that's when the energy shifts completely, because people are always drawn to those who live from wholeness, not from need. She might come to miss you in ways she can't explain. She may remember your calm, your honesty, your consistency. But by the time she does, you'll have already learned something more powerful. You were never meant to be remembered for your absence, but for your evolution. You were never meant to be defined by who left, but by who you became after. And once that truth settles in, everything changes. You no longer move from hurt, but from peace. You no longer react from emotion, but from wisdom. You become untouchable in spirit because you finally understand that love was never about being chosen. It was about choosing yourself and never abandoning that choice again.